Are you ready to dive into the mysterious world of the jungle? Despite countless research missions, many unknown creatures and archaeological treasures remain hidden beneath the dense canopy. But some spectacular discoveries have already given us a taste of the fascinating jungle mysteries yet to be uncovered. Have you heard of an exciting jungle discovery, and would you dare to step into the jungle yourself? Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Here we go. Follow us on this exciting adventure. Lost City. For centuries, the mysterious White City was nothing more than a myth that was finally brought to reality in 2015. Located in the rainforest of Honduras in the region of La Mesquita, experts were able to track down the remains of man-made plazas, mounds, and even a pyramid. But also many incomparable artifacts, such as the head of a statue representing a hybrid of a human and a jaguar, left the researchers with open mouths. In detail, the time of origin of the village could be narrowed down to the years 1000 to 1400 AD. Apart from that, however, almost nothing is known about the culture that created the White City. We may be curious which realizations the specialists will still bring to daylight over the perished civilization. Nazi hideout? Have you ever heard of the so-called rat lines? This was the term used by the U.S. intelligence agencies to describe those escape routes that high-ranking representatives of the Nazi regime used to make their getaways after World War II. Often the rat lines led via Italy or Spain to South America, with the fugitive Germans settling mainly in Argentina. The idea that the Nazis then retreated into the jungle and eked out an existence far from any civilization was long considered extremely far-fetched. And yet, a discovery made a few years ago in the Argentine rainforest shows that this could have been exactly the case. Thus, in 2015, archaeologists announced that they had come across some ancient ruins that were once inhabited by the Nazis. Even more, in truth, the stone buildings in the province of Misiones are said to have been used by none other than Martin Bormann. He was considered one of Adolf Hitler's most important confidants, and since he could not be found after the end of the war, the rumor persisted for decades that he had managed to escape to South America. However, a body was to be found during construction work in Berlin in the 1970s, which was clearly assigned to Bormann using dental methods and a later DNA analysis. The question on whether the ruins in the Argentine jungle were actually used, and if by so whom, thus remains both open and controversial. Cu Chi Tunnel. When U.S. forces established a headquarters near Cu Chi, they had no idea that the enemy was literally lurking beneath their feet. After the first tunnels had been dug in the late 1940s, the Viet Cong had massively expanded the system in the 1960s. Ultimately, it grew into an invisible construct under the ground that encompassed 3 levels and covered a length of 200 kilometers. In detail, the hidden network housed entire cities, including offices, hospitals, and schools. However, those who wanted to reach them had to squeeze through tunnels 60 centimeters wide and 80 centimeters high, whose entrances were carefully camouflaged and protected by traps. Although U.S. troops tried several times to bomb, flood, and smoke out the tunnel systems with poison gas, they did not succeed in destroying the Cu Chi tunnels. Where large-scale destruction failed to bear fruit, the so-called tunnel rats were deployed, special units that personally entered the system to eliminate the enemy. The Last Soldier. Officially, the end of World War II is dated September 2, 1945. But for Nakamura Turo, the war ended much later. He did not surrender until December 18, 1974. As a member of the Japanese Army, Nakamura was stationed on Morotai Island, which was captured by the Allies in 1944. Officially, he was declared dead in March 1945, but in reality, he had retreated into the jungle with some comrades. Unaware that the fighting was actually long over, Nakamura broke away from the group in the mid-1950s to live in a camp he had built himself. And as luck would have it, his hut would not be discovered until 1974. A few weeks later, the search party had reached Nakamura's shelter. The emaciated, unclothed man then stepped outside, where, completely terrified, he surrendered and was led away. Ultimately, however, he refused to be flown out of Japan, Instead, he returned to Taiwan, where he died of cancer in 1979. Swamp Ghost. Agumbo Swamp is probably the last place in the world where you would expect to find a World War II fighter plane. And yet, amidst mosquitoes and massive crocodiles, a 4-engine B-17E flying fortress lay dormant for many decades. But how did the U.S. Air Force heavy bomber actually end up in one of the most remote regions of Papua New Guinea? Well, originally the aircraft was flown by Captain Fred Eaton, who had participated in one of the first United States air raids during World War II. After an attack on Japanese ships, the bomber was intercepted by enemy fighters and came under heavy fire. Ultimately, the B-17E crashed out of the sky. Not because it was so badly damaged, however, but because it ran out of fuel. So it was that Eaton and his men crash-landed in the Agumbo Swamp on February 23, 1942. Miraculously, the group managed to survive on foot for 6 weeks, braving malaria and scorching heat. The crew reached their troops and were flown out. What was left behind was the orphaned bomber. Eventually, it would take until 2010 before the so-called Swamp Ghost was transferred from its swampy location to the United States. Since then, on display at the Pacific Aviation Museum in Pearl Harbor, the bomber is considered by historians and aviation enthusiasts to be the holy grail of military aviation. It is the best preserved B-17E of just 4 recovered aircraft. Sigariya. Sigariya in Sri Lanka, or the unofficial 8th wonder of the world. Situated high on a 200-meter-high buttress, the former fortress looks back on an eventful history. After Kassapa had murdered his father, King Duhansana, the fear grew in him that his half-brother, Moggallana, would claim the throne for himself. Because of this, the regicide had Sigariya built, but in the end, it came as it had to come. In 491, Moggallana gathered a huge army around him and overthrew Kassapa from the throne. Even today, the site amazes with its breathtaking appearance. Anyone who wanted to enter the complex once had to walk through the open mouth of a gigantic stone lion, of which only the paws remain today. The ingenious cistern system ensured the supply of drinking water even in the event of a prolonged siege. The unique frescoes still testify to the artistic talent possessed by the inhabitants of Sigariya. Although the legendary mirror wall contributes its part to the fact that the rock fortress is known far beyond the borders of its homeland. So that the king could admire himself, the plaster was always polished to a high gloss. Maracoxy and Mapiguari. Short question: how many different life forms are there on Earth? Clear answer: we have no clue. Even if there are no exact figures about the total number of terrestrial species, researchers agree that the value must be astronomically high. But with it not enough. According to current estimations, 90% of it are also still unknown. Could it not be against this background that the stories, which circulate since ever about mysterious jungle creatures, possess a true core at the end nevertheless? For example, the British explorer Percy Fawcett, who disappeared forever in his search for the sunken city of Z, is said to have heard of the bloodthirsty Maracoxy people. These are said to be very hairy, ape-like creatures that live in holes in the ground and deliberately hunt humans. These creatures have an excellent sense of smell, which gives them the reputation of having a sixth sense. The Carrió Indians, who lived in the Brazilian rainforest, also know of a monster that does not appear in any official animal lexicon. It is Mapiguari, a creature of enormous size that leaves its hiding place at night to ambush unsuspecting people and animals. While most experts relegate the stories to the realm of myth and legend, researchers such as David Oren and Elton De Silva believe it is possible that Mapiguari actually exists. However, it is not supposed to be a monster, but a surviving specimen of the giant sloth. Before the creature's existence is confirmed or disproved, however, there is still a long way to go. The search area covers 6.5 million square kilometers, and not even half of it has been explored. So people, and now you are asked, which discovery has captivated you the most? Dig deep and tell us about it in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to give us a like and a subscription so you'll never miss one of our videos again. Finally, feel free to take a look at the other exciting posts on our channel that we've linked to for you here in the credits. And with that, thanks for watching. Take care and see you next time.